Welcome back to Society Case Files. My name is Robert, and today I'm going to talk about World of Warcraft Legion Remix. If you like this kind of content and you want to see more, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and maybe even like it. Otherwise, we're going to dive right in. World of Warcraft has done this before. It was for Mists of Pandaria. You basically make a character, they start at level 10, and then you just do content. And as you kind of rush through it, you get a currency that allows you to buy cosmetics and other things. And all the while, you are building up a buff that gives you additional strength, stamina, different stuff like that. Improves your experience boost. So, for example, when I was doing the footage here, my experience buff was up to 45%. And it just keeps going up and up. You've got these weird sort of semi-daily quests. You could keep doing them, but they eventually kind of narrow out to something a little bit harder. That gives you additional gear and items to make this progress easier. And as you play along, you pretty much every single quest get a chest that gives you additional equipment so that you kind of don't have to worry too much about finding better gear. So the whole time you're playing, you're constantly improving yourself, which allows you to not worry so much about having to go to the auction house or something like that for gear. Now, of course, you could just grind mobs, especially in the other mode that we're going to talk about, because they do give a significant amount of experience, and you could just level up that way, but it kind of defeats the purpose. You don't get as much of the currency that you need to buy stuff by just killing stuff, so you kind of need to do the quests. The whole point is to sort of experience the Legion expansion in a new way. So you're doing the quests, you're doing the campaigns, and along the way you're unlocking new achievements that either give you more of the currency or other things. So there's titles, there's mounts, there's all kinds of stuff. And for the most part, it's really cool. It's an interesting way to do it. If you remember Legion very well, you had a class hall, and the class hall was kind of like the Warlords of Draenor settlement, where you could go and send people on quests. You know, you'd get these heroes. They'd go run off and do things for you. They'd bring back gear or experience, or sometimes they even had to do things in order for you to advance the campaign. Well, in this mode, once you unlock that quest board, someone pops up and says, hey, yeah, no, we don't got time for that. And it's true. There's only going to be just over 100 days of Legion Remix. So some of those were kind of painful because you'd had to get a RNG drop, and occasionally it wouldn't drop in the first 2 or 3 tries. And you could waste days trying to get that thing. Well, you don't have to worry about that now because they pretty much got rid of it. And most stuff in this is pretty darn easy to take care of, especially in the normal tier mode. And there are 2 tiers. We'll, again, talk about that in a moment. Much of the game is simplified to the point that it feels a lot like World of Warcraft Arcade Edition. Like, you don't really have to worry about gear. And in fact, the transmog is free at the sort of hub because you're changing gear so fast and so often that trying to keep up with it is crazy. Like, you're often just going to look like whatever you happen to be carrying in this version. So your time runner, which is what you're called, will change significantly throughout the process. Now, you've probably played Legion before, or at least you know something about it. And in this expansion, you had an artifact. Basically, there was one for each of your specs, and you would have to do a special quest to get it. And you picked one right off the bat, and then further down the line, you had the opportunity to grab another one. So you kind of wanted to know what build you were going to play in Legion early on so that you'd get the right one. And then after you received that artifact, then you would play through quite a bit of the game. And then maybe you're like, man, I really wish I was playing a Holy Paladin. Then you could pursue that at a later date. This version gives you one before you even start. A guy hands you an artifact and you pick whichever one you want based on your spec. And then after that, once you unlock the class hall, you could technically do all 3 right off the bat. I did them with my Warlock and had them in short order. It's not that big of a deal, and you can score them really, really quick. The funny thing is that they are quite a bit different. They used to have powers, as they did in Legion, but now they have a different style of skill tree. And it's purchased with currency that you get by doing quests, scrapping items, that kind of thing. There's quite a few, honestly. They make you faster, they give you more stamina, more strength. There's special powers that you can initiate. Some of them are required for the quests. So like you'd have to have one equipped and then go take out 100 enemies. And that's one of the quests. It's actually pretty neat. You can respec it anytime you want. You just get into it, right click the items and they go away and then you buy whatever it is that you want new. So even if you don't have all of the points to buy all of them right off the bat, you can sort of move them around in order to ensure that you have what you need to do the quests. And I thought that was pretty clever. Honestly, they thought through quite a bit of the process and they made it very convenient, and it's not super grindy, because again, it can't necessarily be as grindy as they might want it to be because you only have 100 days. So they got to make it accessible. They got to make it quick. And I think that's the whole point, is that it's supposed to feel fast and fun and just crazy, a little bit chaotic. Dungeons are absolute madness. People are just running through those real quick, and you're just tearing up the bosses like way quick. One of them that I remembered, I got into the dungeon. I was like, oh, I dread this one. I don't like the final boss. And then the final boss died before they even got to do any mechanics. So that's kind of, it's just interesting. So I've been tiptoeing around the tiers. There are 2 tiers now, sort of like Diablo. You've got the normal tier and then you've got heroic. Heroic basically makes everybody a lot tougher, but you get 500% bonus experience per kill, and you get additional currency as well. I tried it with my Warlock, and it wasn't terrible, but then I tried it with my Paladin, and I was actually having a harder time with some of the bigger mobs. Of course, I was taking on things that I probably shouldn't have, but still, it was a little ridiculous how hard they were to kill. In fact, it was so much slower that I sort of felt like I was getting more for my buck in normal mode than in heroic. In other words, I could take out more mobs quicker in normal, so I was probably getting, at least in feeling, more experience, or at least more progress. Now, heroic mode has a lot of reasons to do it. There are achievements behind it. There are specific quests that require you to be in heroic mode. You could switch between them pretty easily without any problem. They give you plenty of these little stones and cards to teleport around to everywhere you need to go, so fast travel's not a big deal. And of course, you got dragon flying or dragon riding, so you can cruise around and do some of these quests that back in the day were a pain in the butt. Now you just fly to wherever they are and you take care of them in seconds. Sorry about the little tangent there. Back to heroic mode. I like the idea in theory, but at least at the levels that I was trying it at, I didn't have as much fun with it. Was it more challenging? Absolutely. Like, there was a elite that I couldn't even scathe. And what's more interesting and kind of problematic is that there are still, as of me recording this video, quite a few crazy bugs. A friend of mine tried to play the Druid. They had some kind of class quest bug that was so bad it was crashing the game, so they had to make another character. I was having a bug to where my heal spells just weren't working at all. Like, they just, I'd cast them and nothing happened at all. I guess it's absolutely possible that the mob was hitting me so hard that it negated the heal, but I kind of doubt it. I didn't even see a message that it worked or anything like that. I've seen some other bugs where you just fall through the ground, get stuck. Lots of really crazy stuff. Many of them were sort of related to the heroic mode. So it's almost like it didn't work out as well as they liked. Maybe they didn't have as much time to test it. Maybe it really did mess with the game more than they anticipated. I don't know. But there are a lot of problems in the game right now that I don't necessarily think they impede your progress, except for the Druid, of course. But just in general, I found that I've experienced more bugs in this than I have in World of Warcraft in a long time. I mean, the game's pretty old, so whatever bugs are still there from the old days are things they're never going to fix. And I don't know, they seem like they're pretty good about keeping up on it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you've got a whole list of bugs that are real problematic. But with this mode and it being so short, it would have been really nice if they would have made sure, absolutely sure, to fix any like serious problems. You know, maybe back in May, they should have had some people rush through this and given them some kind of special titles or something as incentive. But whatever the case, there is a chance that you might play the game and find some problems. Now, on that exact same note, and to be completely fair, one of the dungeons I did, I was the only person who was in the mid 40s, and everybody else was 80th level. So some people have played this a lot more hardcore than I have and have made it to that exalted state and are on the quote-unquote end game of Legion. And what that means for us is that obviously there aren't too many game-breaking bugs because these folks made it pretty far. I got to be honest, at 46th-ish level, and with as many to go as I seem to have, trying to get to 80, I'm feeling a little burnt out already. It's not that I wasn't having fun. It's that there's this sort of feeling I have while I'm playing it. On one hand, I'm like, this is really cool. I love this new sort of feel. But because I have done Legion many times, because I actually have most of the mounts for the different classes. I've gone through and played through at least the class hall quests on most classes in the game. So just to get those mounts. And so I've done all of these zones plenty of times. And while it's kind of cool to rush through them in normal mode, playing it in heroic is sort of a slog and just feels kind of exhausting. And so I just am not like, I guess the division for me in my head is that on one hand, yay, this is neat. And on the other, I'm like, I've done this before. I'm tired. Just some things that I have picked up by watching some videos and listening to people talk. If you are interested in trying, I was talking about a warlock, and you see I'm playing a paladin on here. One of the reasons that I made the change is because as I was listening to people talk about the game, they were mentioning things like the whole point of Legion is to get all these cool customizations and things that you can carry over into the retail game. So the best way to do that is to try and pick a character that, number one, you're very comfortable with, and number two, is going to have the most versatility. In other words, someone that's going to get you through queues for dungeons or raids, someone that's going to be able to survive large number of mob attacks, someone that can survive on their own and do this solo content as quickly as possible. Now, the Warlock was actually doing pretty well for me because of all the minions and stuff, but the queue times were quite frankly absurd. And that's even in a game that a lot of people are doing this content and are queuing for things. So you'd think that it would be quicker, and it probably is compared to retail. But still, 10, 15, 20 minutes I was waiting. Whereas as soon as I got my paladin out and went tank, I was getting queued in 2-3 minutes. And so I was able to do that content much quicker. And just as an example of why it mattered, I was able to take 2 of the special quests that you get from the season. And one of them was to do a specific dungeon, and one was just to use the group finder to do a dungeon. So I queued for that specific dungeon, completed both quests by finishing the one event, and there I was, off and running. Got like 32,000 experience. And one of the pieces of advice that I read that's kind of important is that you want to stack as many things as you can to do at the same time. So like I just did, I'm going to do 2 dungeons at the same, basically try and do 2 quests at the same time. I'm trying to take out a certain number of mobs. And so those are all going to work together, and I'll be able to finish them all at the same time. The limited time for the expansion also kind of comes into play there and really drives you to be a bit more of a rusher when it comes to playing. This isn't really the experience to sit back and just sort of enjoy it and take it in. This is definitely more of a, I've got to get through this, and I need to bust out as much content as I can as quickly as I can. Now, that's not for everybody. I mean, plenty of people want to play and smell the roses and relax, and I completely respect that. But this is made for folks that love to just grind out content and kick it fast. It's up to you to decide if that sounds fun or not. Some of it is enjoyable, and some of it is still, even though it's quick, it still feels a little bit like a slog. And of course, eventually you're going to have to do the heroic mode, and hopefully you'll have a build that makes that less painful. Some interesting things that I have found just really quick before we wrap this up. There was a quest called Defeat Rare Elite Enemies Throughout the World. And you take the quest and it only has 2. I quite honestly could not get that one to work. I was pretty much sure that it required you to do world quests, but I did a couple of those and fought those elites and they didn't register. I looked it up and people were offering ideas on who it would be, but they were also world quests, so I just had to abandon that one. Some of the other ones that are a little bit grindy, 15 rare enemies out in the world. Those are basically the little silver stars. You find those characters, you can beat them and grind out 15 of them, finish a quest. I found that there were some that respawn so quickly you could just camp them. You could just sit there and wait and rack it up if you really wanted to. But, that's not the most fun thing to do. There's just a lot of these kind of weird, grindy, go out and do X number quests. And those were not as exciting as some of the other things that they have you do, like experiencing the dungeon scan or anything like that. I haven't tried the raid yet, and obviously I'm only halfway to end level, but just from what I know of the game and what I've seen in videos and watched, it's just about getting those achievements and figuring out what it is that you want out of the game. Like, I could buy some of the best of the cosmetics already. So if you don't want them all, you might be able to get what you need by only playing for a few hours and getting up to a certain point and then go and grab a few, little knickknacks that you missed when you played Legion the first time. They're available here and you can get them. And just on a totally different note, but still World of Warcraft related, I was playing along in Legion and it dawned on me I hadn't checked the trading post in a while. So I logged into my main character, went over to the trading post, and they have all of the crazy headless horseman stuff. They have his mount, his look, one of his weapons, and specifically the mount, which I've used here several times in my footage. I tried to get that thing 3 years running, and one of those years I was really hardcore. I had 14 characters that I was able to try it on. I did it every single day of the All Hallows event 14 times, and I never got it. And so when it was available to buy for $700, I snatched it up. Of course, it doesn't look exactly the same. They changed the color of his feet. It's not green. It's sort of yellow. So people will know that you were not lucky and that you you had to buy your Headless Horseman mount. It was sad, but I'll take it, especially since someone I was playing with, they had only one try a day, and on the second day they got that damn horse and I didn't, and I'm still bitter about it. But just as a point, if you're watching this video roughly around the time it comes out, the trade post has a whole bunch of cool Halloween stuff that you could get, and it was all worth it. But anyway, are you playing Legion Remix? Are you even playing World of Warcraft? What do you guys think? Is this something that is really cool? Would you look forward to them doing this for, say, Cataclysm? Let me know in the comments. But this is Robert with Society Case Files, signing off.